Well, significant news today. As expected, Australia will recognise a Palestinian state at the United Nations next month. The Prime Minister argues the move is a practical contribution towards building momentum towards peace. Let's bring in Trudy McIntosh. Trudy, the government has been building up to this bit by bit for the past few weeks.
They've certainly been laying the groundwork, haven't they, Tom? The Prime Minister in these series of international calls over the past fortnight, wanting to move in lockstep with other nations, including Canada, France, the United Kingdom, to name three, who will go down this pathway alongside Australia now to recognise a Palestinian state at that crucial now United Nations meeting that will be held in New York next month. The Prime Minister has now publicly committed to this and revealed in this press conference last hour that he has spoken to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the end of last week, making Australia's case as to why this is the best step forward and continuing to call for what we've heard day in, day out, for the release of the hostages by Hamas and, crucially, for aid to be allowed into the enclave. The Prime Minister made the case today that the toll of the status quo is growing, and he argued that the world cannot afford to wait for success here to be guaranteed. This was the Prime Minister's announcement.
Australia will recognise the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own, predicated on the commitments Australia has received from the Palestinian Authority. We will work with the international community to make this right a reality. Our government has made it clear that there can be no role for the terrorists of Hamas in any future Palestinian state. This is one of the commitments Australia has sought and received from President Abbas and the Palestinian Authority.
As you heard the Prime Minister there stressing that the central precondition here is that terror group Hamas cannot have a role in the future governance of a Palestinian state. He also pushed back at that argument coming from Israel's Prime Minister that this is a reward to terror group Hamas. Instead, the PM saying this is about isolating Hamas. As you can see here on your screen, these are the preconditions that have been laid down to the Palestinian Authority. We saw that phone call with the President Mahmoud Abbas this time last week, and our Prime Minister reiterating these global calls that there are conditions that need to be placed on the Palestinian Authority's role here, including that they recognise Israel's right to exist, commit to demilitarising and hold general elections, ending payments to the families of prisoners, and broader reforms, including transparency. The Prime Minister and Foreign Minister today, though, rejecting the idea that this is a notionally symbolic gesture, that given the United States, for example, has veto power at the UN Security Council, that ultimately a Palestinian state will likely not be recognised at this meeting of the UN. This was the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister on that. What would your argument be to Australia? Do you think this is symbolic?
This is a practical contribution towards building momentum. This is not Australia acting alone. This conflict, which has gone on for such a long period of time, I think Australians want to see. And
we have an opportunity as a nation to contribute to momentum towards two states, and that is the only prospect for peace.
Trudy, talk us, well, we've had a torrent of reaction already to this announcement, haven't we?
Because it had been long telegraphed, the senior members of the Jewish community clearly did not want this to be the path the Albanese government was going down, but nonetheless, that is what is happening. This is a statement we've got in from the Executive Council of Australian Jewry. It's lengthy, but I'll bring it to you. It says, Israel will feel wronged and abandoned by a long-standing ally. The Palestinian Authority will feel that a huge diplomatic prize has been dropped in its lap, despite its consistent failures to reform, democratise and agree to peaceful coexistence alongside a Jewish state. It adds, Hamas and other Islamic groups will see that barbarity on a grand scale can lead to desired political transformation. The Jewish community is not surprised by this announcement. We knew from the government's public statement and our private engagement that this move was coming. This doesn't lessen our disappointment. We also had this reaction a short time ago from the Shadow Foreign Minister, Angus Taylor.
This is rewarding terrorists. This is a reward to Hamas for what they started on October 7. That sets a dreadful precedent.
I should have said shadow defence there for Angus Taylor. A few other moving pieces here. The Foreign Minister Penny Wong speaking to her US counterpart Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, today as well. The US obviously has a different view to Australia on recognising Palestine. The Foreign Minister, though, saying in the press conference when asked about this, Tom, that there was plenty of other things raised on this call, the broader issues in the Indo-Pacific, and that Australia isn't necessarily expecting some form of retribution necessarily from the United States.
Which Donald Trump hinted at over Canada, which is why that...
But that might be broadly including in the Canada situation.
They're
already having a fight on trade.
That's why it's being asked, because he mentioned that once Canada made that move, well, let's whack some tariffs.
And who can genuinely say what's going to happen with the Trump administration? It's hard to predict what sort of moves they're willing to make.